Hi. I decided to make a little stream right now uh, because I have a couple of news I think we should all read. Now, I'm going to show them. Remember, this is not monetized, so feel free to chat amongst yourselves to ask any questions. If I read them, I'm still getting a bit used to this. I I will answer the questions, okay? But right now, this stream, what is it all about? Well, it's just a couple of news that I picked up and that I think that they might be interesting for all of us to say. Now, let me just set up here the first one. Let's focus on the news. Now, this one is very interesting. You can read this in the site Daily Beast. Drop by them, give them a word, share across social media, give them views, give them subscribe to them. Why not? Okay. Uh, the reporter is this guy, Tom Sanders. Okay, published April the 21st, 2035. Again, this is not monetized. Teen girls arrested and deported while backpacking in Hawaii. I read about this in other news. Okay, I even saw this in Portuguese news. And what does it say here? Two teenage girls from Germany were detained, arrested, and deported at an airport in Hawaii after immigration officials said it was suspicious they had not booked a hotel room. Let's repeat this. Two teenage girls from Germany were detained, arrested, and deported in an airport in Hawaii after immigration officials said it was suspicious they had not booked a hotel room. So, two normal European tourists, backpackers. We also have a lot of them here. Okay, here are names: Charlotte Paul and Maria Lepere, 19 and 18, arrive at Honolulu from Auckland while undergoing a round the world trip. They plan to spend 5 weeks in Hawaii before moving on to California and Costa Rica for the next legs of their journey. And despite having the ESTA travel authorization, the immigration officials accused them of attempting to enter the US to work illegally, and they were placed in handcuffs and taken to a nearby detention center. They later learned was a deportation facility. Okay, so two backpackers, something that I am certain. Let me see some issues here. Mm, some issues with the stream. Give me just a minute. Mm, right, let's continue. As I was saying, these are two girls, two backpackers who have enough funds to pack a bag and just travel around the world, maybe making some vlogs or whatever. I don't really know. I didn't go into it. And they wanted to enter the US to work illegally. Two Germans. Okay, makes sense. And they had their ESTA, meaning they had their papers in order. And let's continue on. On arrival, full body scans, strip search, forced to wear green prison jumpsuits, okay, placed in a holding facility with serious criminals, so two girls, 18 and 19, including an alleged murder who had been locked up for 18 years and were forced to spend the night in a freezing cold double cell. Naturally, this is the reaction of the girls. It was all like a fever dream, Maria told the German outlet. It was a shock. We didn't expect it. No, they already knew a bit of what was happening, but they honestly did not expect it to be treated in such a way. And look, and I really don't blame them. Sorry for this. I'm having a bit of issues with the video. Now, after a sleepless cell in the freezing cell, the girls were woken early, escorted back to the airport in handcuffs. Upon arrival, they were forced to board a Hawaiian Airlines flight to Tokyo and were told they would receive their passports back once they arrived in Japan. So they were not even deported to Germany. Including in their travel documents were interrogation transcripts signed by the girls, which contained sentences we didn't actually say. So, lies, said Charlotte after the ordeal. They twisted it to make it seem as if we admitted that we wanted to work illegally on the US. So, do you know who does this? Do you know who does this? Russia does it. A lot of authoritarian regimes do it. And now the US also does it. Upon arriving in Tokyo, the girls will ship home on a flight via Qatar, which they say helped them to come to terms with the ordeal. Both of them say they have processed the incident well, but are upset their backpacking journey has been marred by such a black mark by US authorities. I sometimes think about how wonderful the time in Hawaii would have been and what we would have experienced there, said Charlotte. The ESTA, if you don't know, it's the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, allows citizens from certain countries to travel to US for short days without requiring a visa. But recent change, recent change mean that the ESTA authorizations for the US visa is not sufficient enough to automatically allow the holder to enter the USA, and that the final decision rests with immigration officers and border authorities. Back to me. Now, what does all this mean? This means, my friends, that even if you have all the proper paperwork, all the ESTA, everything, it's not safe to travel to the USA. My personal advice is that you do not, I repeat, do not travel to the USA. Do not do not do tourism there. Do not do absolutely anything there because it's a very great risk. I honestly, I cannot understand these people. I cannot understand their way of thinking. But to think that two German girls, 18 and 19, were there to work when they were clearly backpackers, when they had all their paperwork in order. So what if they wanted to work illegally? For example, this is not the case, but so what? They had their ESTAs. If they were working illegally, then you would order them out of the country. Simple as that. Oh, once in the USA, they would get lost and we wouldn't be able to find them. And blah, 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 blah. Then that is a problem of your damn state, of your damn bureaucracy, of your damn stupidity, you ignorant fools. Look, friends of mine have canceled their trips to the USA. I would not go to the USA in any circumstance to visit family, to work there, to tourism, whatever. I would not even board a flight that would stop for any reason in the USA. No. USA tourism is already set to have a pretty bad year. Okay, and with all of this, it's only going to get worse. That is all I'm going to say. But I this was an example that not so many people have been talking about, and I considered it would be interesting to talk a bit about it. Okay, now moving on. There's another news here. Remember, these are news of this week. Okay, they are not recent. They are recent news. Now I'm going to talk about what Mrs. von der Leyen said to Politico about the Trump state trades war. So I'm going to show the news piece and we are going to talk a bit about it. All right. Von der Leyen, the world is lining up to work with Europe amid Trump's trade war. Now, I heard this also here in Portuguese news with Portuguese officials talking about it. So this is really not something that I did not knew was happening. Okay, but this is the not again. This is an article in Politico. Remember, this is not being monetized. I'm not making no money about this. I'm just a guy reading the newspapers with you. So please go check the site out. Uh, Become a member. Give them views, whatever. Help them. Okay. This is April 2022 by Nicolas Vinocourt. Yes. Countries are ready to work with reliable trade partners in Europe after United States President Donald Trump's blanket trade tariffs upended global markets. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told Politico, and I heard this. Okay, she and other people have talked about it. Okay, in or from the EU. In a more unpredictable global environment, countries are lining up to work with us, the Commission President said without naming Trump or the USA. I don't think she needs to. In recent weeks, she spoke with leaders from Iceland, New Zealand, Malaysia, the Philippines, Canada, India, and the United Arab Emirates who are looking for strong, reliable partners. So it's not just Europe talking with other states, it's other states talking with us. Why? Because they also need reliable partners that are not the USA, because the USA is not a reliable partner. The global order is shifting more deeply than any time since the Cold War ended, and I agree with her, said added von der Leyen. And now she speaks here about the reciprocal tariffs on April the 2nd, hitting the EU. Now I think he cancelled some and he returned to others. I don't know, and I frankly do not care what the man wants to say because he's only talking shit. But this, of course, is my opinion and only my opinion. But this is how I think about it. Now, in the EU's case, it is still paying a 10% rate as well as 25% on exports of steel, aluminum, and cars, while the US and China have hit each other with triple-digit tariffs. If Trump reimposes those reciprocal tariffs, global merchandise trade could shrink by 1.5% this year, with North America hardest hit, the World Trade Organization forecasts. Von der Leyen has contrasted the volatility by playing up Europe's steadfastness. Amid such upheaval, confidence in the EU was on the rise, she argued, and she is right. Okay, now this is the opinion of what? No. This is also very important. The long delayed pact with Mercosur trading bloc of South America countries, you know, sorry, I got lost. But But this after this, this trade part with the Mercosur trading bloc is already done, and Trump is holding talks with leaders of several foreign nations, including Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Now, and I would like to talk a bit about this. Let me just say. Now, first of all, agree or not agree with the political stance of Miss Meloni, she's smart. And she will eat Trump for lunch and spit him out before dinner. And this is something people have to consider. They have to consider why she went there. She's a smart girl. She's playing him. And anyone right now that speaks to Trump about anything is playing him. And you have to understand this because it will help you understand what will happen now. Because do you think Mrs. Meloni wants to risk having happening to Italy what is happening to Hungary? You don't know what is happening to Hungary? Fines, subsidies that are being withheld, money that is not entering the country, support that is not entering the country, people that are not being paid, or at least on the risk of not being paid. Because this is how you treat this. Because the EU is a democracy. Okay, this is not some kind of oligarchy. So if Miss Meloni wants to go to to the United States and play the good girl to Mr. Trump, which she's not, she's trying to see what she can get out of it. If I was her and in her position, I would probably do the same. Again, I don't agree with her positions, but this is just putting myself in her place. Now, let's continue on with the news piece. Uh, where the US president said there would 100% be a trade deal with the EU. Sorry. Uh, the guy's a maniac. But no concrete details of a potential deal have yet emerged from that meeting, and EU officials are skeptical about the change of the quick fix. Meanwhile, senior EU officials, whom Trump has systematically shunned in favor of national leaders, are ramping up their diplomatic outreach, with von der Leyen reportedly planning a trip to China to meet President Xi Jinping late this year. Now, I want to explain to you how things work. First of all, the EU, the EU is a supranational entity that exists by the will of the member states. And the member states elect people that represent them in the EU. But they are not barred from making deals if such deals they make respect the laws and regulations of the EU. This is why when some Brexiters claim now we have the freedom to make deals with whomever we want, I tell them you had it before. My country, Portugal, we have agreements with, for example, we have well, I'll give you this example. We have an agreements with the Portuguese-speaking Africa, meaning Cape Verde, Guinea-Conakry, Angola, Mozambique, São Tomé e Príncipe, okay, and furthermore Brazil, furthermore Timor-Leste, East Timor. You know, we have agreement even with Portuguese-speaking people from Goa in India, from with Macau in China. We have agreements, for example, for studying and working, meaning uh, young folks from those countries can come here to Portugal. They can come here and get an education, and in theory, vice versa. Okay, I say in theory because usually the best universities are here. Also in Brazil. Okay, let's be honest about it. Okay, there are very good universities in Brazil too, but there is disagreement. Neither of these, none of these countries are part of the EU. We have trade agreements with Japan, with Korea. It's centuries old. Korea, China, also centuries old. Okay, the U.S., Canada, Mexico, like I told before, Brazil, Argentina, even Venezuela had some agreements with us. Right now, I don't think they have many because they have that maniac in power. Okay, so what you have to understand is that Mrs. Meloni can make a trade deal with the United States if that trade agreement respects the laws and regulations of the EU. So, for example, the food safety, you know, the chemical composition, all of that, she is still bound to that. She cannot diverge from it because if she does that, she's fine. Better yet, her country is fine. And the fines can be from withholding subsidies, canceling. It can be cancel the freedom of movement, and Italy to find itself temporarily with a border to the rest of the EU and not having that freedom of movement, and a series of things. And now, do you think anyone is going to forfeit that for an agreement with a maniac with a bigly idea of putting tariffs on everything that moves, even an island where only penguins and seals and birds live? I can see the right wing right now screaming, "Look, she's coming over to our side. Look, look, come to the dark side." For God's sakes, man. I cannot understand these maniacs, man. Frankly, I can. It's it's a bit impossible for me to understand how these people work. I find it funny and odd at the same time. Okay? But what you have to take from this is to understand this. Portugal, for example, could right now sign a trade deal with the US, for example, as long as it respected the laws that we agreed to sign to be a part of the EU. And of course, there is the principle of solidarity. That is another thing in which we have to technically support ourselves. Now, I'm going to now play here news for my English friends about the fishing agreements. This is quite annoying because there are some. Let me just close this. Okay. This is in the Independent. Let me see the date. 22 of April 2025. Okay. Let's see it first. Again, please visit the site. Please subscribe to their services if you find them agreeable to you. If you think this is not absolutely truth and you think this piece is incorrect, please say it so in the comment sections. Okay, and this is about this. Starmer close to post-Brexit defense deal with EU after concession on fishing rights. British firms will be able to access an EU defense fund after negotiations prepared to make concessions on fishing. I will start by saying this is crap. Okay? The EU cannot give access to a non-EU member to defense funds. What the EU might might do is create a common fund with the UK, where both parties contribute with money. This is the first thing you have to see. And concessions on fisheries also crap. The EU cannot give concessions on fisheries. What they can do is to negotiate the quotas and all of that. And that has to be done via the countries that are affected by this agreement. Okay? So, out of the start, I can tell this is crap. But Sir Starmer, close to striking a major deal with the EU that would let British armed companies sell billions of pounds of weapons to European allies. This is a difference. This is a different thing because uh, when the EU now made the procurement for weapons, they said that all contracts will have to be sourced in the EU first, and then if there is anything we cannot source in the EU, we might source in the in countries in Europe, like the UK, for example. UK companies will be able to bid for business under the bloc's 150 billion defense fund. Well, it's not 150 billion, it's much more. Okay, I'm sorry, but now I understand what you are trying to do. Okay, let me just focus on me, back on me again. Okay, let me begin by saying this. This is not giving access to a defense fund. Okay, if you, like me, heard the debate and the explanations by Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa about this, it's very simple. The EU created a fund from which all European countries will access. European in the sense of EU member states will access, that will enable them to source weapons. And what they said was as simple as this: all weapon procurement should be given to European companies. In exceptional cases where the EU is unable to source those weapons in Europe, then they can make for example, make a contract with a UK company to give us this or give us that. But this is an exception. And as for concession in fisheries, I'm also very blunt in telling you that no. What might happen is, for example, for the UK to us to access, for example, more of an area, instead of just having the access to those waters immediately close to the UK, because the UK did not want to negotiate anything. Okay, they only negotiated to maintain the reciprocity of the rights of UK fishermen and EU fishermen, mainly with France, but there are other countries like Netherlands, for example, Ireland, that have water borders, let's call it like that, with the UK. And what this might be is, for example, to give access to British ships for a quota, for example, in other EU countries' waters, national territorial waters. Okay, if they are saying this, all right. But again, the way they word this, they are wording this like I don't know. Let me just put in a little thing here in the chat. Welcome all. Uh, So, what I want to explain to you is this: this is not an access to EU funds. If it was the case, it would be first place, it would be like I told you when we started on this news piece. It would be, for example, the UK and the EU to set up a fund to purchase weapons or whatever in common, because nothing says that the UK cannot have a defense agreement with the EU. The UK has had a military alliance with Portugal for about 800 years or whatever. So this is nothing new, okay? This is nothing out of the normal, of our normal. But when it comes to weapon procurement, now that is a different sense. That is a different song, because American companies have been buying up weapons production companies in the UK, and those companies, they won't be allowed to participate in this. This is just for UK weapon procurement companies, and solely in cases where it is not possible to source them inside the EU. Again, the UK newspapers, they seem to lack the finesse of understanding exactly what is happening, and then they start talking about things I think they should just shut up. I'm sorry to say this, but I never trusted them very much, and now I'm even trusting them less. Okay, now let's go to the next piece. This next piece is in the, I don't know this newspaper, City AM, and it's a new it's something that I saw even here in Portuguese news, and it's about, as I will show you the piece. Okay, so uh, this is the site. Okay, please visit it, share it. Okay, again, I'm not being monetized, so I'm not making any money about this. I'm just a guy reading the newspapers with you. Okay, remember this, please. US dollar weakens as de-dollarization becomes really and a frankly scary prospect. This is by Elliot Gulliver Needham, an investment reporter. Don't know her. And now, this is talking about the fall of the dollar. And to tell you the truth, I have been reading a lot about this, but I think there is hmm, this part here, for example. It does seem that European Central Bank officials are keen to market the euro as a strong alternative to the dollar at this point. Okay, but I read this and I am not entirely sure that this will ever happen, because right now it's still beneficial to keep the dollar. But the issue here is the value of the dollar, and I think that things like this. In comments on Friday evening, President Trump insisted that the dollar would always remain the currency of choice. Instead, if a nation said that we are not going to be on the dollar, I will tell you that within one phone, in about, they will find the dollar. Okay, this is all bullshit. This here when Michael Brown here at Pepperstone is right, and I heard this before. There was a risk of moving away from a decades period of dollar and U.S. hegemony. Okay, this is happening, but I don't. I think it's still too early to start on this. Okay, I think there's a. I think our friends here from this country, I think they are funding a lot of this because they have been selling off the U.S. debt, and the value of U.S. debt has plummeted precisely because of this. Because people are selling it, and like anything in capitalism, if you have more of it, then of course, the value will decrease. But I do see this. I do see this. This part here, right now, I don't think so because I heard otherwise from EU institutions. But this part here, if I was in the UK, I would be worried because the pound has struggled to match the performance of some others currencies due to UK's high exposure to the strength of the global economy. I I think this is more of a UK worry than a EU worry. This part right here. But I do believe that in the future the dollar will in fact stop being the world's currency. But to that to happen, this this trajectory that the US economy is following will have to become a bit more concrete. And if that happens, then this will inevitably happen. But right now, no, I don't think so. I think we should look at this still as the infancies of a trade war. Okay, I think people should not give too much importance to this. Okay, but I think this is something we should be attentive because it will happen. Because if the economy of the US continues to plummet like it has been in all senses, because when you look at the US and you think that oh, when you look at only one of the factors of what is happening, like for example, the decrease in tourism because of the case that I was talking about those two German girls that got arrested, okay? And other cases like that British girl that also was arrested, that German guy that was also arrested, and every day you see a case like that in the news. From the person here in Portugal that at the airport they told him we have canceled your ATS without any kind of explanation, and the guy was going to in a business trip to the US and he had to come back. He could not enter the US. Okay, from people arriving at the airport and having been strip searched, having their phones copied, their social media investigated, and all of that. All of this is going to reduce tourism and traveling into the US, and it will impact it dramatically. You have no doubts, absolutely have no doubts this will happen. But to jump from that point to a point where the dollar stops being the world currency, no. Because for now, the dollar is still a commodity. It still matters. But in the future, you might have the euro or the yuan as the world currency. Make no doubts about it, or both of them. You can also have that situation. Do not think it's not possible to have three accepted currencies in the world, for example. It would not be uncommon. So, right now, let's say, as for that part that he was talking about the pound, well, the UK is alone, as it chose to be. So, I'm in the part of the UK, I am, I'm a bit fearful for them because it won't be, it won't be good. It won't be good. All right, let's go on to the next piece. This one, I only have the title. Then we are going to talk a bit about it. Okay? The EU won't decouple from China as a condition for reaching trade deal with Trump. Do you know what this means? See? Tourism boycott. Just to talk about that one I was talking just now. Europe travel to US drops in the wake of Trump presidency. Do you know what this means? And this one, go to Euronews and go watch this, okay? 22 of April. Let me just focus back on me. Now, what does this mean? What Europe and China are telling the US is for Trump to F off. Europe is telling Trump that no, we won't stop trading with China to have a trade deal with you. Europe is open to business. So we will trade with the US if the US is a fair partner. But we will not stop trading with China to have a trade deal with you. We will not choose one over the other. Because, number one, we think about ourselves, our economy, our geopolitical position. And secondly, we will not damage our economy and our citizens just to help you. And we will not deal with a nothing bully. No. This is why Trump walked off the Ukraine agreement, because he knew no one would help him. And the thing I'm listening to here more and more is people saying that the transatlantic alliance is dead, and this benefits no one. This does not benefit Europe. This does not benefit the US. This does not benefit Korea, Japan. No one. This benefits China. So we will keep dealing with them because we know that the US is going to disappear or become irrelevant, and we will be left alone to deal with the protection of our own markets. So it's better to negotiate than to submit. And for China, it's also better to have a trade agreement than to have trouble. And Europe is rearming quickly. And just for a small, a small, a small context, almost all of the European unions, or all the European Union's armies are professional. We have constricted, sorry, I always miss, enlisted army. But most of us already have a professional army. Now it's just a question of expanding it. And this is what we are doing now with the other moves we are talking about the weapon procurement. So I don't think Mr. Trump is really thinking, but I don't think he thinks at all. This is my opinion, but whatever. Now, let's go on with another one from Reuters. Oh, sorry. The previous one was in Euronews. I subscribe to that channel. I find it informative and non-biased. They try to provide a balanced opinion and vision on world events, and I would advise you to subscribe to them too. They are available in many languages, in Portuguese, English, French, German, whatever. Just go and check them out, okay? Now, let's go on. Reuters. Again, please visit the site of the news pieces. I'm just a guy reading the newspaper with you. I'm not earning any money about this, okay? Now, Trump says US will set terms if China does not do a trade deal. I cannot tell you what I think about this declaration. Donald Trump said on Tuesday, this is dated from April 22nd of April, that if China does not agree to a deal on trade, the US will set the terms. Trump also told reporters he would be nice, very bigly nice, sorry, with Beijing, and that tariffs on imports from the country would fall significantly following a deal, but not to zero. Okay, let's focus back on my mark. The man is an idiot. So, if China does not do what he wants, no deal. I think it was yesterday he was saying that he already had talked with President Xi. And the Chinese authorities said, no, he hasn't. And this is, then he said he spoke with the EU representatives. No, he hadn't. What can you say about this? When a person believes that he can impose his will on the rest of the world, a person claims that their coffers are being filled with tariff money, a person that taxes an island, that imposes tariffs on an island where only penguins and seals and birds live, a person that does not know the difference between a VAT and a tariff. Okay, now I'm not going to show any more news. Just going to talk a bit more about this, and then I'm going to close the stream. Um, but why did I show you these news? I show you all of these news. The teenagers getting locked up. Okay, von der Leyen talking about the EU being a reliable partner. Starmer, or the Independent, sorry, not Mr. Starmer, the Independent, going on about being part of this weapon procurement in Europe, just like they did before in other occasions. Like, for example, when the EU, if you don't know, the EU has a set of agreements and regulations destined to maintain food chains, supply chains intact inside Europe. What does this mean? This means, for example, if a country is lacking a specific good, uh, these regulations says that another country that can provide that good should primarily sell to the country that needs it instead of exporting it outside of the EU. What does this mean? For example, imagine France has no oranges and Portugal is exporting, I don't know, 20 tons of oranges to another country. This means that Portugal, instead of exporting those oranges to another country outside of the EU, Portugal will sell the oranges to France because France needs it more. And if the country loses any money about it, in this regard, for example, the Portuguese exporter is losing money by exporting to France instead of, I don't know, to the US, then the EU will compensate the Portugal for that, the Portuguese producers in this case, for that lack of money. Okay, this is what this means. And there were deputies. I heard one in the MPs. Sorry, MPs. MPs is how you call your deputies in the lower chamber of the Commons or whatever. And he was when the reporter asked him, "And are we part of this mechanism I told you here about?" And yes, of course we are. We are Europeans. I can I don't know why a man, an older gentleman, but not a senile person, at least he did not look like it, would say such a thing. Of course you are not part of it. You are not in the EU. You are not part of. You are not. You do not benefit. You do not benefit or are damaged or are subjected to any kind of regulation in the EU. Only if you are selling to us. In this case, we did dictate the rules. So this part of the weapon procurement, my friends. Okay, and then the other piece I talked about the U.S. dollar not stopping being the world's currency. Okay, This is fear mongering because this will happen. I have no doubts about it because I do not see the US being able to dig itself out of this hole they have dug themselves in with Mr. Trump. But right now it won't happen simply because it is not beneficial to the world market. But it will happen. And as the USA becomes more and more isolated or self isolated, then its influence will dwindle, and also any even the UN might leave the US. This is an example, but it can happen at any moment. You have to understand this. The UN might leave the US and go to some other country. In Europe, in Asia, who knows? But for now, I think this is fear mongering. And again, this is an attempt to protect those that are selling the American debt. And the Americans are seeing this happening. They are seeing their money devaluating. They are seeing the value of the debt that they have and with which they have the funds to sustain their economy going down the drain. And they are worried, as any would be. After that, I talked about this little. Sorry, just a minute. I spoke about this position of the EU in regards to China, and this is another consequence of what Mr. Trump is doing. Okay, this is also happening solely because Mr. Trump has destroyed the relationship with Europe, and what is happening now is just the prelude. It's just the beginning. Uh, when it really happens, when things really start getting darker, then we will see real consequences of this. As markets shift, as the US loses market shares in both importing and exporting. And then I ended up with this declaration of Mr. Trump that he will make China do whatever he wants. China. Now, all of this only only creates a common view of what is happening, and that is a dwindling influence of the US. And some people would be laughing of it, rejoicing on it, whatever. But me, frankly, I'm just worried because instability is never good to anyone. No, never. And it's not good for my country. It's not good for Europe. It's not good for the US. It's not good for China. It's not good for Japan, for Korea, for Africa, for Southern, for anyone. Okay? But this will become more and more and more and more intense because even if today, Trump's and his government step out, they summon new elections, you elect someone else. Even if you do this today, the US has lost more than 40 years of political influence, soft power, and I cannot even account for the billions in dollars the U.S. Treasury has lost with all this job. Because you see, when you elect a person that is an economical illiterate, when you elect incompetent people, you have to make sure that even if they are just frontmen, the visible face of the institution of government, they should always be accompanied by competent people. And in his first term, Trump had some competent people with him. Not everyone was competent, but he had people that were able to talk with him, to navigate the fine prints, to tell him to look, don't do this, do that, don't speak this way, speak that way, whatever. But now, who is there to hold him back? He has no respect for courts. He has no respect for the rule of law. And Americans are protesting. Okay, are those protests doing anything? You are not really protesting. You are going out in the streets and saying, I don't like it, I don't like it. But what are the solutions then? Americans are laughing of other Americans online with that Fafo thing and all of that, with a lot of Schadenfreude, with a lot of hysterical people screaming. But are they really doing anything? I'm not seeing anything. I'm just seeing emotions and over emotional people talking about things that they don't seem to understand. Now, I realize this stream was a bit of an amateur attempt of showing contents and talking at the same time. I also realize that my green screen is not very good, but again, I'm doing this because I just want to talk with people. I want to reach out to people, and I want to ask them to think for themselves. In anyone that is in the US, do not confuse my words with any kind of hatred, because I have no hatred for anyone. I could not hate an American like I could not hate anyone else, because hatred is illogical. But what you have to see and understand is that the actions your government is taking right now, they will have dire consequences to you. You you must understand this, honestly. And I think you should begin to think to finding options to, I don't know, get together, talk, elect decent people. Bernie Sanders, a decent man. Alexandra Ocasio Cortez, a decent woman. You know, I didn't like Kamala too much, but she was a decent option to that man. And I am sure you can find decent options in politicians. But elect, do not elect a person because that person makes you laugh, because that person makes you feel better about yourself, because they speak things that follow your narrative. No, elect the person that tells you the hard truth. Okay, just writing something here. Just thanking anyone that happened to pop up. Thank you. Stopping by. Now, do not elect a person that tells you what you want to hear. Elect a person that speaks with you frankly, that tells you the truth. And the truth is hard. No one likes to listen to the truth. But someone will have to tell you some of the things that I have been telling you right now. Someone will have to tell you that you cannot buy this product from this country because you have lost the ability in the market to purchase that product, because the other country is selling that product to some other country, that some other country does not want to help you. If you for example, if the US is attacked or is under military attack for whoever, you have to understand that especially the treason of the US to Ukraine, that will be a blemish that Europe will never let you forget. Never. Never, 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 never. And don't think that because you came at the end of two world wars and aided Europe in first in the beating the German Reich, the Kaiser Reich, and then beating the Nazis. Okay, and then you divided, and for our troubles, you divided Europe into areas of influence, one for the Soviets and the Russians, and one for you. And we are still now suffering the consequences of it. Don't forget that either, because that is also going to be thrown at your face. But what you have to understand is this: you Americans are the only ones that can help yourselves. No one will come in your aid. And you have to change. You have to change your perspective. You have to change your education, your position before the world. And if you do not do it, reality will force you to do it. And in my view, it's better to accept things. It is better to accept things than to linger in them. Because I have spoken about this often and I will speak it again. I have had to come to terms with certain issues in my health. Ignoring them, it did not help. And as you can see, I'm a logical person. You know, I have a logical way of thinking. But as any martial arts teacher will teach you, and I have had martial arts training, it is not the emotions you have that are dangerous. It's the way that you interpret them. So you might have a reaction, pardon me, and you can have a reaction, a feeling about something, about an event, about a word, about a person. But when that happens, you have to begin and then think how will you react. Just think, take that moment to inhale, let it sit in, admit that the emotion, for example, if someone insults you, admit that you are feeling the urge to reply, and then think on how you should react. Okay? And this is what you Americans have to do. It's useless for people to go online complaining that they voted on Trump and they got fooled and now he is doing this and he's doing that and why are you guys mocking us? That is useless. It is also useless for other people to mock them, to laugh, to make TikToks to gain views. That is also useless. You have to understand where the hatred comes from. You have to acknowledge it. You have to deal with it. You have to look into the ugly side of your soul and think about it. I have said this before. Immigration for me also has to be controlled. It's simple logic. But do you need to hate people because of that? Do you think how illogical is that? If you want to hate anyone, hate hate the government, elect some other government officials. But we have to think that societies are not something that is set in stone. Change is inevitable. Everything changes. Everything. And you cannot do absolutely nothing about it except ride the wave. Okay? Now, uh, I want you to have an excellent weekend. If you watched me and you did not want to speak or whatever, no problem. You know, I will be doing these streams. I will announce it in the channel, but I will probably start making a stream every Saturday. I'm still unsure about the timing, but I will probably move it to 10 in the evening, 10 o'clock in the evening, or something like that. This was just a test run, you know. I was just playing around with the contents and all of that. I managed to I managed to focus my windows for my contents and all of that because I have some experience in making videos and editing and all of that. But making this more immediate and spontaneous because when I do this without any guidelines. No, I just turn on the recording and start speaking. Okay, because I want to. No, I'm not choreographing anything. I want to make mistakes. I want to correct myself because I think people need to listen to someone that is just looking at the camera and talking with them. Okay. Now, I would like anyone again that stopped by and watched me to thank them for have to come here to talk with me, and I wish you all a great weekend. And if you are in America, the US, I especially wish you good luck. And please try to do what I asked you for. Violence solves nothing. Hatred solves nothing. Logic solves everything. Have yourselves a great day or evening, whatever, whenever you are listening to me, okay?